it up, let it roll. Stars and stripes in my soul. Steel toes on, boots in the gravel, heartland true. on every channel. Open Bible, flag on the wall. We say what we believe when we don't talk at all. This is red, white, and raise hell. Cowboy hat, church bell, can't scare us into silence. We were born to rebel from the back road to the beltway. We won't fade, we won't fail. Proud, loud, standing tall. Red, white, and raise hell. We back the badge, we guard the border. We love our guns and law and order. They try to shame every word we say, but we don't bow down, we just press play. This is red, white, and raise hell. Cowboy hat, church bell, can't scare us into silence. We were born to rebel from the back road to the bell. Hey, we won't fade, we won't fail. Proud, loud, standing tall. Red, white, and raise hell. You can cancel the show, but not the crowd. We're still here, still talking loud. Hand of the free on every spell. Hit that mic, host, let the truth ring out. This is red, white, and raised hell. Cowboy hat, church bell, can't scare us into silence. We were born to rail from the back road to the beltway. We won't fade, we won't fail. Proud, loud, standing tall. Red, white, and raised hell.
Everybody is here and ready to leer. Good morning, everybody. It is a Tuesday morning. Holy crap, I haven't flipped the flip calendar for 3 days. Wait a minute. Today's the 16th, so I haven't flipped it for 4 days. I better catch you up on all of the inspirational, philosophical, and motivational stuff that you missed by the flip calendar. I try to do this every day. True reasoning is a result of reasoning. True courage is a result of reasoning. A brave mind is always impregnable, said Jeremy Collier. Little minds attain and are subdued by misfortunes, but great minds rise above them, from Washington Irving. All right. Flag Day, which was Sunday. Obstacles will look large or small to you according to whether you are large or small, said Orson Swett Martin. Yesterday, I should have given you this one. Yesterday's June 15th. What the superior man seeks is in himself. What the small man seeks is in others. That's Francois La Rochefoucauld. And then for today, the 16th morning of the month of stone walls do not a prison make, nor iron bars a cage, said Richard Lovelace. There you go. A little bit of uplifting stuff for you. So good morning, everybody. It's a great day because it's a Tuesday. It's a great day because Kirsanow is coming on with us in about an hour to break down all of the big stories in the news today. I'm going to start in a very different place. I know the top story is today what it was yesterday, and it has been for a while now. What's going on with the war? What's going on with the Strait of Hormuz? What's going on with the price of oil? What's going on with the price of gas? Et cetera, et cetera. Plenty of time for that, obviously. And there's a lot of stuff to cover. And Kirsanow and I will talk about a lot of that stuff too. But what I want to start with today is a weird story. I literally just came across it this morning while poking around news stories. You know, last night I always do most of my diligence and research the night before. That's why I don't sleep enough. I'm usually up to around 12:30, 1 o'clock, and then I get up at 6 to do this. But this morning, during that first hour, that 6 to 7 hour, I stumbled across a story that I had not seen before. Dylan, throw this one up. Actually, before you put it up, Do you sell? I just asked this on the chat. That for the early chatters, I got in before we even started this morning. The comments. Let me see if I can open that up real quick. I just asked this question. This will kind of just be to set it up, I suppose. And the question is, have you ever sold anything on Facebook Marketplace? Which is a weird way to start start our live stream show, right? Our politically based conservative talk show that we do together. What's this all about? Yeah, there you go. That's my question. I show up on the chat, by the way, as True Blue Streaming, which is a nod to the owner of the account, which is True Blue, which of course is the platform on which I host Cops Under Fire. Anyway, so I threw that up there and I said, I've got a story for y'all. And immediately Sherry said, yep, several times. I don't know if anybody else has responded to that yet or not. Lots of scammers. This isn't about scamming though, B-butts. Lots of scammers on Facebook Marketplace. Just be careful. Cash only. This isn't about cash or scammers. Sally says, my friend sold stuff on Facebook Marketplace for us. Maybe a smart move for you. Let's see. Just looking for any other responses to that. B-Butt says, Peter Kirsanow is my favorite guest speaker. Peter's everybody's favorite guest speaker. He loves you guys just as much. Care says, sell lots of things on Marketplace. And Sherry, once again, we sold a refrigerator and a daybed at different times. Okay. Why am I bringing this up? Because like I said, just doing the homework this morning, I just stumbled across a story that I wish I didn't have. Now, go ahead and bring it up, if you would, Dylan. Yeah, that's the one. Indiana mother fatally shot while protecting her son amid deadly ambush during Facebook Marketplace exchange. Now, I don't bring this up to scare you, except that it's kind of something that should scare you a little bit, right? I mean, when I have sold a few things on Facebook Marketplace. I have refused to allow anyone to come to my home to get it for fairly obvious reasons. I have almost in every case, well, see, in some cases I had to go to, I bought as well on Facebook Marketplace. And I'm trying to remember the biggest thing I bought. It was a weight set for my son. And I had to go to somebody else's house out in the sticks someplace to fill up the back of the truck with a bench and all this other stuff. So I had to go to their house, and I also delivered a very large item from my house to somebody else's house. But all of the other times that I've done any kind of exchanging on Facebook Marketplace, I've done it in a public setting. I'll say, meet me in the parking lot of Discount Drug Mart. Meet me, here's what I'm driving. Meet me in, some public place with a lot of people around. And the reason why is because of stuff just like this story. An Indiana mother was fatally shot in the head while protecting her son amid a deadly ambush during a Facebook Market exchange last week. 18-year-old John Ford fatally shot Jean Gregg, 40. An 18-year-old shot a 40-year-old woman and killed her as her son attempted to sell a watch in Indiana. Surveillance video shows Ford pulling out a firearm while he was looking at the watch. Gregg jumped in to help her son, and Ford responded by opening fire and striking her multiple times. Gregg died from her injuries over the weekend. According to WSBT, John Ford is now facing murder, attempted murder, and attempted armed robbery charges. Police say Ford was meeting a person at the location who was selling a watch. While he was looking at the watch, he brandished a firearm. Jean Gregg moved in between the third person and Ford. Gregg then chased Ford away. In court documents, surveillance footage showed Ford reaching for the watch, and Gregg was pushing and telling him to get away. Surveillance footage. I don't know if there is said surveillance footage available. I guess we don't need it, but there's wow. If you're let me see if you're seeing the same thing. Dylan, keep it up there and put the image up there if you would, of the suspect and the victim. If you scroll up, it's in the tweet that's contained within the story. Go ahead and scroll it, Dylan. And scroll it into the tweet. Now it's, come on, buddy. There we go. That's it. Take a look. Jean, an Indiana mother, murdered by John Ford during an attempted robbery at a Facebook Marketplace meetup, trying to protect her son when she was fatally shot in the head. Ford reportedly admitted to detectives that he shot. He admitted it. Okay. Well, considering it's apparently on surveillance footage, I guess he might have to. He admitted to detectives that he shot her. Look at the first comment underneath the post on X, underneath that photo. My wife loves buying things off her Facebook Marketplace and innocently heads out to meet the people when I'm not around. I think I've finally gotten her to understand this is a big no-go, unless I'm with her and armed. Shouldn't be that way, but it is. That's the whole reason I'm bringing it up this morning. That is literally the only reason I'm talking about it. Because absolutely correct. It shouldn't be that way, but it is that way. Sorry, I got to get that comment off there. It shouldn't be that way, but it is that way. Do not, particularly if you're a female. You know, I don't mean that to sound sexist, but it is what it is, right? It's even without a firearm, it's probably much easier to steal from your intended, marketplace seller or buyer from a woman, just to overpower her. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it at all. And don't let them come to your house. Never let them come to your house unless you're selling something like Sherry said, like a refrigerator, and you kind of have to. And if you do, make sure somebody is there who is armed, or you. Shouldn't assume that a female cannot be armed, but absolutely, you have no idea how many of these scammers are out there using aliases, false, names on Facebook. Hey, I'm interested in buying your stuff or whatever, and or I'm interested in selling. This is a better one. The ones who go out there and sell items that, and then try to lure you to a spot to buy it, and then they know you're bringing cash, and then they rob you. It's a very dangerous world. Obviously, I'm not breaking any new news there, but the story just kind of struck me when I was scrolling around this morning, and because I've gone to several Facebook meetups, but like I said, I've always done it in public places, either in parking lots. Generally speaking, I'll say I'll meet you in the front of the store, so that people will have to come up again where people are coming and going in and out of the stores, or, there's a bank nearby where I live, and, we'll go into the bank parking lot right in the front because, there's cameras everywhere. There are steps you can take. When there's a bank with an ATM, that's a great meetup to do a sale because, you tell people, yeah, let's meet in front of the bank parking lot. Lots of cameras there. And that'll make them feel at ease as well, so they don't think you are the one trying to ambush them. What a sad reality that we have to do that, but you do. I mean, like I said, if it's mobile, if it's clothes or whatever, put it in your car and meet them in a space where there's lots of cameras and make sure they know it too. That's the only, that and arming yourself up. It's about the only way to make sure. I would just hate to see tragedies, and I do hate to see tragedies like this, and I'm infuriated by that image. Look at that innocent woman, a 40-year-old woman. Look at her. Victimized by a thug in an ambush. It's just, I don't know. You know what it is. It's horrifying. Quick responses here in the chat while I can. Let's see, what do we have here? Oh, that's an interesting one. Local police department, says Lisa, advises that exchanges occur in their parking lot. That's good advice. That's good advice. If the police will allow you to do that, to make deals and sell and buy in a police station parking lot, holy cow, that's better than the bank idea with all the cameras that I came up with. B-Butts, that's why I have my husband handle my Facebook Marketplace. Good for you. Joanne, Olmsted Township Police have designated a designated trade zone in its parking lot for such activities. Look at that. I had no idea that was a thing. And I'm so glad that I'm learning that it is now. Sorry, I got to silence my phone here. I'm getting too many alerts. But that's a really, really good thing to know. Thank you for that, Joanne, and everybody else is bringing that part up. How How proactive, says Lois Irene, the Olmsted cops. Yes, agreed. Sherry says, you must be wise. Check out the person who contacts you. Oh, you must be wise. That's advice. Check out the person who contacts you, read their profile, refuse to engage if questions. Chuck locked off the house, CCW on hip when meeting large purchase pickup. Yeah. And the thing is, the profiles, the scammers, they'll create fake profiles. They'll pull a random, a free picture of somebody off of a screen that looks not threatening whatsoever off of a page somewhere and put a fake profile up there. So the profiles can give you a little bit, look at their, what I often do too, in the times that I've had transactions, it's been a while, actually. I think the last Facebook Marketplace transaction I made was when I foolishly, in my opinion now, gave away our swimming pool. It was time. The kids had been grown and they're out of the house, and nobody's using the pool much anymore, and we had to get rid of it. And so I just gave it away. The cost of having somebody come and tear it down was going to be prohibitive. So I just said, anybody wants to come and tear it down for free, you can keep it. So I did. I probably should have charged some money for it anyway, but that's pretty big. I can't deliver that one. That was the last time that I did a Facebook Marketplace exchange of some kind. But anyway, the thing that you'd look at is you look at to see who's coming to your home. That's the only time somebody's come to my home now that I think of it. But when you do that, and that fake profiles are out there, look at the friend list, any mutual friends. If you have mutual friends and you can see and verify, click through their activity that, yep, these are real people, that's a good starter, good indicator. And I'm not trying to preach because I don't, I'm no expert at this any more than anybody else is. I just see a story like this and it makes me very, very sad and angry. And I want to make sure nobody else gets caught up in something like this. If selling something portable, go to a public parking lot. Absolutely. That's what we're talking about. One, often meet up with a seller at a local police station. There's no one. In Akron, both buyers and sellers have engaged in violence. That's what I'm talking about. You don't know whether you're buying or selling, whether you're going to be involved with somebody who's a danger. You just don't. That guy looks like another Carmelo, says Big Jake. Lois Irene, I have a friend who sells on Facebook. She asked me to go with her for a sale. All was fine, though. The guy gave me the creeps. Did you all hear FBI stopped the drone attack at the UFC fight, Lindy? Yes, that is one of the stories we're going to be talking about here in a few minutes. So yes, thank you for that. Appreciate it. Usually the scammers only have one photo. That is often true. That's why I say look at their profile, but also at the other stuff, and particularly the friend list. Do they have friend lists, and are there any of them mutual? Because chances are, if you're selling somebody, it's to somebody in your own community. Nobody wants to drive 2 hours to get to buy something from somebody that's used. It's going to be somebody that lives near you. And if it's somebody that lives near you, there's got to be at least some sort of, mutual friend connection there, right? We don't engage with anybody with only a few friends or transactions. I'm highly suspicious by nature. Good for you. Charlie G says they offer up rating systems. They offer up rating system provides a sense of confidence. Okay. To a degree, that's true too. Like, I don't know if those can be faked or not. Yes, check the friends list always. And Jimbo is in a little late, but says crank it up and let it roll. Okay. And we are indeed rolling. So that's just, it's not a real, this isn't a controversial topic or talking point. It's just something that happened, and I just want to warn you as my friends, be careful. I'm looking at that picture again, the thug and the victim, and I'm just horrified. He showed up to rob the guy in this watch exchange, and she came to try to be a protector, and literally did try to separate them and got shot in the head and killed. And yeah. That's just a horrible, horrible thing. Please be careful. Please be careful and make sure you do that public thing like I talked about. Front of stores where there are cameras, there's surveillance cameras because of stores, because of shoplifters. The front of banks where there's tons of cameras. If your local police station, like people have said in the chat, do this, by all means use that. But don't let somebody come to your house. Don't go to theirs. If you can all avoid it. And if it's a large item and somebody has to come and vice versa, then again, avail yourself of the Second Amendment. Protect yourself. That's all. Just make sure you have it ready. That's it. All right. So that's the story that was not a planned beginning. Here is the planned beginning. Dylan, throw up story number 1 for me. And again, I'm going to come to the Iran stuff and the negotiated deal, the memorandum of understanding, and what's happening with the respect to the 60 days of negotiations. And I'm just less than confident, like I said, not because of people on our side like President Trump, Vice President Vance, but because of people on their side. I'm less than confident we're going to get what we are hoping to get in this situation. But there's plenty of time for that. I wanted to get into a few other things before we dive into that with Kirsanow. Take a look. You know that we are continuing to survive and work our way through. Hey, we're past the halfway point. Today's the 16th. That's good news. Through the month of it's either the month of or it is the nuclear family month, as they declared by the governor in Tennessee, as declared by the governor of Indiana. I don't know if any other states have caught on yet. Our state, led by Governor Mike DeWine, is not catching on. But as we continue to suffer, we are now halfway, a little bit past the halfway point through that month that shall remain nameless. Baseball is doing its level best to piss people off, to piss off nuclear families. Major League Baseball has been doing this for some time, as you know. There are 29 out of the 30 teams that participate in quote unquote pride nights at their stadiums. And the one that does not, the one that refuses is Texas, the Texas Rangers. Houston Astros do it. Texas Rangers do not. And they are hosting some sort of a nuclear family night or something like that, or natural family night or whatever in response. They're the only ones with the guts to do what should be done here. As far as individual players go, however, some of them are willing. They've got the guts to do and to say what needs to be said. And baseball is pushing back on them. Take a look at that tweet. After 3 San Francisco Giants pitchers appeared in Friday's game, which is what their Pride Night celebration was, and those freak shows out in San Francisco, they went all out with it, by the way. They had like a renewal of vows by same-sex couples in the middle of the field. They had some drag thing going on in another part. I mean, it wasn't just, tolerance. It's full-on celebrate and party with the LGBTQ, people. So there were 3 players for the Giants who were forced to wear the baseball caps that the team provided for that game, which had the rainbow logo on their logo, or the rainbow-colored logo of SF. And so 3 of them deciding if they're making us show expression in this way, which has nothing to do with baseball, then we're going to express something else that's important to us in another way. And they wrote Bible verses on their caps. And Major League Baseball responded to that by warning them and warning the team that such behavior, such expression of biblical belief will not be tolerated in our baseball, on our baseball fields. Quote from Pat Courtney, Major League Baseball's chief communications officer: "The writing on the cap violates our rules, and consistent with normal practice, we have warned the players about future violations." Now, this isn't the first time that this has happened, by the way. In previous Pride Night crap that has gone on, Clayton Kershaw from the Los Angeles Dodgers had written on his cap a Bible verse to basically say, look, you're making us make statements by wearing these rainbows, things that I might not believe in and that might not be consistent with my beliefs in my faith and my Christian teachings. So I'm going to express myself in my own way. They've done this in the past. Baseball doesn't like deviancy, except for the celebration of deviancy. In other words, they don't want individual players to deviate from the pro-pride message that they want to send. They don't want you to deviate. You can't be individual. Think of the hypocrisy of that, if you can, for just a moment. You can't be an individual. You can't make up your own mind if it doesn't flow with the rest of what we're doing. You can't express yourself in your own personal feelings when the whole mission here is for everybody to be the same. Everybody to show pride in pride, to show pride in the LGBTQ debased and debauched lifestyle. to show pride in the grooming of children and getting them involved at a young age. Young kids at the ballpark wearing the pride flag everywhere because, nothing says baseball quite like telling little kids to change their identities. Right? Nothing says baseball quite like let's have a bunch of drag queens do performances up on the big screen at the ball game. Family-friendly entertainment, to be sure, right? So this is what we're doing, this massive push. This is what everybody in the ballpark is, and all of the players are rainbowed up and LGBTQ'd because we're celebrating differences. But if you as a player want to celebrate your difference from what we are celebrating, we're not having it. You're going to be punished, or at least warned, and the next time you will be punished. So it's just so bizarre, because if we say, which we do, Pride Month, Pride Night, Pride whatever, celebration of people's choices of sexual partners, and that's what it is. The L and the G and the B part of all of this is just sexual orientation. People who don't like normalcy. Normalcy is male attraction to female and vice versa for the purposes of bringing them together to procreate and propagate the species. It is just this, it's nature. It's how sperm finds egg. And eggs finds sperm. It's lit. That's normal. Normal meaning, statistically speaking, 98% of the population is that, because that's how the species survives. It's that way in the animal kingdom too. That's normalcy. Of course, it's considered a slur if you call that normal, because it would mean those who are not sexually attracted to the opposite sex are then, quote, abnormal. And that's considered an insult or a slur. So you can't be abnormal by telling everybody they have to go with the flow of normalcy. Yet here in the baseball world, in baseball's world, what do we have? We have what we are calling normalcy at the ballpark, Pride Night. It's normal to wear the rainbow. It's normal to celebrate the sexual deviancy of the tiny minority of the population. It's normal to celebrate the trans, deviancy. Those are all the way we're doing things. That's the normalcy. And if you want to stand apart from the normalcy of our Pride Night by writing a Bible verse on your hat that indicates your disapproval of it, well, we're going to punish you for being different. We're going to punish you for deviating, hence the term deviant, for deviating from the night's celebration of deviancy. Holy crap, the hypocrisy. Because it is the tiny percentage of LGBTQ that is deviating from the normalcy of society, which is fine. We're a free country. Go be deviant. Nobody cares until you come for the kids. And when you come for the kids, there's going to be a pushback. And that's what some of these Christian athletes are doing. They're pushing back. And they're not allowed to push back on the deviancy because it makes them the deviants. Yeah, you can kind of wrap yourself in a knot over this, right? It's just wild. Let me read a little bit more from the story. Several Giants pitchers, in a statement of their faith, wrote Bible verse designations on their hats. One starting pitcher, Landon Raup, addressed his reasoning after the game, citing the verse about representing God's covenant. It's just about God's covenant and a promise that he makes to us that, his faithfulness and his mercy. That's just kind of something I believe in, and I stand firm in that. And I am thankful we live in a country where, we have the freedom to believe what we want and express what we want. That's such an important line because it's all about freedom of expression. That's what the LGBTQ, Pride Night promoters and so on are telling you. It's solely about people's right to express how they want to express. Okay, but that doesn't mean organizations like the San Francisco Giants or Major League Baseball writ large or the NFL or any other companies or massive public groups. It doesn't mean that they have to push and promote it. And moreover, it doesn't mean that they have to silence those that don't want to express that viewpoint, but want to express their faith instead. Naturally, the public expression of Christian faith did not go over well with left-wing sports writers who criticized Roop and his teammates, while those critics will be overjoyed to hear that Major League Baseball has now officially stepped in. Per The Athletic, an MLB official has warned those players against violating the rules and writing on their cap. I read you what they said before. They have been warned about future violations. It's interesting that the league chose to issue this warning, considering writing on caps has long been a part of the sport. As just one example, the 2025 World Series between the Dodgers and the Blue Jays, players from both sides wrote number 51 on their hats as a gesture of support for Dodgers reliever Alex Vesia. Vesia and his wife tragically lost their newborn baby daughter as the series started. Did the league warn those players against writing on their caps then? The answer is, of course, no. And why would they? They shouldn't, because the players were wanting to support a family, a teammate, and a player in their league going through something unbelievably horrific. And so they were allowed to break the writing on the caps rule, which says what to us? That the rule is allowed to be broken. The writing on the caps rule is allowed to be broken. If you feel strongly enough about something, you can write on your cap with no punishment. But these players who feel strongly about Christianity and not being part of the LGBTQ circus, well, they're not allowed to break the no cap rule. So the rule is allowed to be broken. Just depends on who's observing it. Just depends on who in baseball decides what's worthy of breaking it and what isn't. Another Dodgers reliever in the World Series, Blake Trinan, drew 2 crosses with the name of Charlie Kirk on his hat after the assassination last year. Clayton Kershaw also wrote, I told you about this one, a Bible verse on his Pride Night hat. Were both of those players warned against further writing? They were not, because there are exceptions to the rule. But this time, we're not having any more of that Christian stuff, any more of those Bible verses on our caps. I mean, what do you think we are? We're not a baseball club. We're here to push social change and social justice. Your religion is not welcome in our social justice push. Incidentally, Aroldis Chapman and Adolis Garcia in 2021 wrote SOS Cuba on their hats during the All-Star game that year. They were also not warned for violating the cap writing rule. On the other hand, would Major League Baseball have warned a player for writing a message of, say, support for left-wing politics or for the LGBTQ community, for example? If somebody in a non-Pride Night game, let's say it's in July or May instead of the month of somebody writes a pro-LGBT message on their cap, you think they're going to get punished for that? Heck no, because the league would then look homophobic or transphobic or whatever it was. This is, after all, the same leadership that pulled the All-Star game out of Georgia because of misinformation from Joe Biden about voting rights. As for the team itself, nobody seemed to care. Manager Tony Vitello of the Giants spoke about it after the Friday night game against the Cubs, telling reporters that nothing was discussed with the protesting players. He said it's just kind of general knowledge of the individuals have the freedom to do what they think is best. But I do think it's been apparent from day one, actually even some of the exhibition games, it's impressive how the Giants as an organization try to embrace the entire community. Perhaps this policy is universally applied and warnings were issued for each and every instance, but it wouldn't be remotely surprising if the league once again caved into pressure from left-wing groups to enforce conformity. And that word is the biggest word of the article for me. It's about conformity. It's so funny. That's the hypocrisy. By definition, the LGBTQ community does not engage in conformity. They're not going along with the norm being male, female, union, procreation, etc. 2 sexes, boys, girls, men, women, males, females, XX, XY. It's just, that's the norm. And they, by their very definition, deviancy from the norm. And yet when baseball has its Pride Night and it's the norm, anybody who deviates from that, anybody that pulls away from that is warned and potentially facing future punishment or punishment for future decisions like that. So it's just really all kind of hilarious, actually. On the subject of the month of Blech, go ahead, Dylan, if you would please, and pull up number, where are we? It would be number 9. Pull up link number 9 for us, because we're going to follow up on this story. Yeah, here we go. So I shouldn't laugh. And in fact, I'm not laughing. I'm actually very, very upset and disgusted by this. But meet Stuart Sanks. I want you to, look at the pictures first before I read the rest of the actual tweet there. Look at the pictures. See that person? Can you zoom, Dylan, zoom in on that upper right picture? See if you can make that happen a little bit so you can see what we're talking about here. Yeah, that's a drag queen doing a drag queen story hour type thing. You can scroll to the other pictures or scooch down there a little bit if you can. Just see a little bit more about this person. Yeah, that's a man, baby. That's a man. And you might say, so what? Random drag queen. Okay. Except that it's not just random drag queen. This drag queen, now we can look back up at the text. This is an elementary school teacher who doubles as a drag queen named Shirley Delta Blow. Shirley Delta Blow. Can you play the word game with me here? Surely dealt a blow. Now, I'm not going to be graphic and I'm not going to be condescending by telling you what that means. If you can't figure it out, it'll come to you. Surely dealt a blow. Shirley dealt a blow is a teacher in an elementary school. Stewart promotes DQSH, and I'm going to have to plead ignorance to that acronym. I don't know. I'm assuming the Q means queer. I don't know what the DSH means. Oh, you know what? I guess I figured it out. It's Drag Queen Story Hour. DQSH is going to mean Drag Queen Story Hour. Okay. Reads books about gender identity to kids, was hired by a teachers union to do a drag show for students, and puts on sexual themed drag shows for kids. This is a teacher hired by the teachers union to do these things. And do you ever notice how whenever they have these debased, debauched, degenerate, Democrat drag shows for kids or drag queen story hours for kids, you notice they're never reading, about Dick and Jane and Spot. They're not reading just, Judy Blume stories or whatever. They're reading gender queer, or they're reading This Book is Gay, or one of the others in the library of the left. Because the goal isn't to just teach children to read, it's to teach children to buy into this, hey, you don't have to be you lifestyle. It is infuriating, I think, comes to mind here. I'm looking a little more closely now at some of the pictures in the upper left and the text there from Libs of TikTok. This JCEA Colorado is affiliated with the National Education Association today, held a drag queen event with students in attendance. These are the people in charge of your kids' education. If you're wondering why men would dress in drag and read to kids, look no further than this story of a Colorado drag queen and educator. Look at the drag variety show by Shirley Delta Blow, held last August on the main stage at Pride Fest, Castle Rock. Children were there. I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry at all about not promoting it, obviously, but exposing this, because of what they're doing, because of what they're promoting to children. It is unconscionable, and it's the reason why, again, I will not even talk about the month of. I put this in there again in the newsletter. I'm sorry to be redundant about this, but I put this in the newsletter 2 weeks ago when the calendar on May 31st was about to flip to the next month, and I said, flip your calendar twice. Just skip the month and go right to July. It'll make you feel better. And honestly, it did. By the way, if you're not getting that Sunday morning briefing that I do, it's the newsletter called Strictly Speaking this week. Please subscribe. There's the link. It's in the form of a QR code. If you have a camera phone, please scan that and then follow it. It'll just tap it and tap it when it opens in your browser. Put your first name in, put your email address in, and you're good. That email address will not be sold. You're not going to get besieged with a bunch of stuff. Anything you get from that will only come from me. It'll be the weekly. And sometimes during the week, I will send out a few other messages and important commentary or videos or things like that that I think you need to know. And in fact, we're going to start doing a little bit more of that during the week, just so we give you a little bit more content than we do just once a week. But the Sunday morning briefing is going to continue to be the key. I put a lot of work into that every week, and I think it has some value. 5 things to know, 5 things to do each and every week, along with the top video and commentary of the week as well. So make sure you scan that and receive for free, Strictly Speaking, this week in your inbox. Okay, it is 15 minutes before it's Kirsanow time. Let me remind you about Too Much, the Magic Bus. Are you registered? I have been told that we have 30 seats occupied. There are still 20 seats. You got now less than a week to get your butt in one of those bus seats for our trip to Columbus 1 week from yesterday. This coming Monday, the 22nd, we are going to be celebrating one small step. This is, of course, the theme of the event that we are hosting in Columbus. I'm not hosting it, but my partners at AFP are. Americans for Prosperity. Dylan, go ahead and throw up AFP for me if you would, because it is celebrating America's 250th celebration by acknowledging all of those who took one small step toward American freedom, liberty, and greatness, but then also about Ohio's role in that. Who are some of the Ohio heroes who have taken one small step to make our state what it is, to make this country what it is, and what small steps can you take toward the next 250 years of American greatness? Look at that, some of the special guests. By the way, Kelly Williams Bowler, I'm interviewing tonight. I'm going to be recording that interview tonight per her schedule, and we'll play it back a little bit later this week. But she's going to be one of the featured speakers there. Brian Anderson, a disabled vet, is going to be there as well. And can you zoom that back up again, Dylan, so I can see the bottom part of that? And more coming soon as well. Oh, Laird Marin. Okay, I couldn't see the other part of the speaker there. That's Ohio's, which is with the Libre Institute. The Libre Institute is one of the three co-sponsors of the event. CVA, Concerned Veterans for America, Libre Institute, and our friends at Americans for Prosperity. So we want you to be there. I want you to be there. It's going to be a great time. I'm going to be speaking. You saw Jack Windsor going to be speaking among some of the others. And it's just a day trip to Columbus. And you don't have to drive, and you don't have to pay. All right. The bus holds 50. I've got 30 seats that are occupied and registered. They're free. There are 20 more available. I want you to be a part of it. Look, this is our contingent as part of the 500 or so. They're going to pack up the event hall in the event center in the Columbus Crew's new stadium down there in Columbus. We're going to leave Strongsville. We're going to be all meeting and parking our vehicles at the local bar in Strongsville. We're going to be then driving down in the bus to Columbus, 3 o'clock. We'll take off at 3 o'clock. The event is from 5 to 8. Then we'll hop back in the bus and be back in Strongsville in our cars by 10, and you can be back home. So it's a simple 3 to 10 roughly day trip to Columbus to celebrate America at 250, and also, like I said, Ohio's role in the first 250 and the next 250 to come. So I'm very much looking forward to that. And thank you to my friends at AFP, Americans for Prosperity, for inviting me to be a part of it. I'm very much looking forward to the opportunity. I'm trying to put something special together, and I think we're going to have a really memorable time. And by the way, oops, I bumped that. My bad. By the way, speaking of celebrating America 250, I talked about this a little bit yesterday, but not nearly enough. The UFC fight night on Flag Day Sunday, at the White House was such an extraordinary event because of a lot of reasons. In fact, I did a video yesterday asking what was the best part for you. You know, the pageantry of Americana and the patriotism on display, the armed forces that were there in massive numbers celebrating and supporting and cheering America 250, the war heroes, Medal of Honor winners who were there, the performances by patriot musicians who were there, Zach Brown Band among them, the national anthem was just extraordinary, and the military flyover. There were so many incredible things about that you probably loved. Like, we're gonna don't get me wrong, we're not gonna have a flyover on Monday in Columbus, but we love celebrating America. We love America. We love celebrating, you know, the glory and the majesty of our 250th birthday. So that's a fantastic thing. The left hated all of it. They held their counter programming. They got together on a stage and sang stupid made up songs about fascism. Meanwhile, I'm surprised they didn't have Nazi fascist Graham Plattner center stage with them. They're celebrating and circling the wagons around a Nazi while condemning what they see as fascist Nazis in the Republican Party. So they held their little "We Hate America" event while we were celebrating, you know, UFC Fight Night at the White House and celebrating America and celebrating America 250. So, Dylan, go ahead and pull up, if you would, the story here about what we almost faced. There was a plan, and this is going to be number 6, Dylan. Put up number 6 on the screen, if you would. And somebody mentioned this in the chat right before we got started this morning. There was a plot that was disrupted by the FBI. Dylan, you grab a number 6 for me, please? Yeah, throw that up on the screen if you would. Look at this. The FBI announced an alleged explosive drone plot targeting the White House UFC event. Now, I want you to know, that's not just targeting the event. It's targeting the president, because the president was right there ringside, obviously, at the UFC event, not to mention a whole lot of other government dignitaries and cabinet members and so on and so forth. And I want to try to pull this up so I can read it. The FBI and law enforcement partners disrupted an alleged plot targeting this weekend's UFC Freedom 250 event in Washington. 5 people were in custody as of yesterday. Investigators identified 23 people as part of a potential network of plotters. The alleged plot involved using explosive-laden drones to hit buildings near the event, force a mass evacuation, and steer crowds toward a pre-staged sniper team. A second wave, listen to the complexities of this. A second wave was the allegedly planned to storm the White House gate, according to FBI officials. The FBI first learned of the threat on June 10th and worked with partners to secure probable cause for an arrest in Cincinnati. Let's bring that home here to this great state of Ohio. By the way, as an aside, look again at that. Go ahead and scroll up to that photo there, Dylan. Look at that. Look at the site. That was, you know, what they called the claw, the construction that was done, you know, for the octagon down below and then the claw overhead and so forth. They called it absolutely gorgeous. It cost $60 million to build and stage that event. Guess how much of it came from taxpayer hands? 0.0. Paid for by donors and by the UFC and Dana White themselves. And look at that celebration of Americana. And the flyover was extraordinary. The fireworks are blasting, the military flyover. I mean, just, you know, what I saw a post about this yesterday. I don't remember who wrote it, but the caption, it was a similar scene to this, similar picture to this. And the caption said, "Imagine how hard it must be to pretend that you don't love that." Because the left has to pretend that they hate that, because they have to hate everything Trump. They have to hate everything that this administration is supportive of. Imagine how hard it is, how miserable your life must be to have to pretend that this isn't cool. that's celebrating this glorious country, and the images that were shown there aren't amazing. I completely agree. Anyway, that's an aside from the story. Now back to the rest of the story here, which is that's what they tried to blow up, or to try to create this massive plot. Investigators, and one of them in Cincinnati, one of those arrested. Investigators later uncovered signal chats in which multiple people allegedly discussed attacking the UFC event. An initial review of one suspect's iPhone identified at least 23 signal users discussing pre-operational activity, FBI officials said. Some of those involved allegedly planned to travel to Fredericksburg, Virginia on June 12th or 13th to prepare for the attack on the 14th. One suspect allegedly told investigators the goal was to target capitalist elites, billionaires, or politicians who received donations from AIPAC. The investigation stretched across at least 12 FBI field offices. FBI Director Kash Patel credited the FBI, the DOJ, and law enforcement partners with acting quickly across multiple states to prevent the alleged attack. Thanks to the rapid action of the FBI, our partners, and the DOJ in a multi-state operation, multiple individuals are now in custody, and allegedly planned attacks were stopped cold. Patel said the operation showed the FBI's ability to respond quickly when threats emerge. Quote, while the result represented the best of investigative work, it was also nothing out of the ordinary for this law enforcement team. We are built to detect, respond to, and bring justice to those who threaten the lives of American citizens, particularly during large gatherings like the historic UFC 250 fight. That's exactly what we did here. I want to thank our great agents and partners. The work remains ongoing. We will continue to update the public as permitted. The alleged plot targeted UFC 250, the high-profile White House event held on the South Lawn as part of President Trump's 80th birthday weekend, and of course Flag Day as well on the 14th. The event drew an estimated 4,300 attendees, including about 1,200 active duty service members, as 14 fighters from around the world competed inside the wire mesh cage on Sunday night. And that's just the number that were allowed in there. There were hundreds of thousands gathered in areas that were not under that same security as the White House lawn to watch this on giant screens. It was extraordinary. But the point being, again, the nonstop attack on all things America. Again, I did my video yesterday talking about the best parts of the night weren't the parts of the night. To me, it wasn't, I mean, there were a lot of great things to love about it. The bouts were incredible. The main event was extraordinary. It was one of the biggest upsets, probably the upset of the century so far in the MMA world. The fights were phenomenal, but the post-ring interviews with the fighters, like the one from Brazil, who gave his all glory to God and Jesus because Jesus saved his life, and then preached for others to do the same thing. Those were great things to see from inside the octagon. The display of patriotism, the display of military personnel, the regalia, the colonial army in Washington regalia among a lot of the guards there. President Trump exchanging respect with the fighters who came by to greet him, and that he greeted them. I mean, it was all positive. It was all good. But none of those were the best thing of the night. The best part of the night to me, as I said in my video, which you can watch on Locals, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram. The point that I made was the best part of the night wasn't any of those things. The best part of the night is knowing how much the Democrats hated it all. Because what was on display that night was literally everything that they abhor, everything that they despise. Pro-military strength, hate it. They hate it. Pro-Trump, hate that. Flag Day, hate that flag. Hell, in previous administrations, the American flag comes down and the pride flag goes up for days in this month. They hated the flyover. They hated everything about it. They hate the UFC because Dana White, owner of the UFC and CEO, is friends with Trump and a Trump supporter. They hated everything about it. And knowing that they were home fuming and miserable. Earlier in the day, and I don't want to dwell too much. Last thing about this, earlier in the day, The weather reports, the forecast called for massive thunderstorms and even potential tornado watches being in place for Washington, D.C. And the left was online just tapping away on their phone, on their little phone keyboards, and about how amazing it is. God is striking down this ridiculous display, blah, 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 blah. Turns out they had an almost perfect night. High humidity, but you know what? The fighters are used to fighting in extremely warm circumstances, right? They're fighting, for crying out loud. But literally, it was just an absolutely perfect night. So the left went from, yeah, it's going to get canceled, to they're doing it and hating every single step of it. Which brings us to the point, obviously, is there really any surprise that there was a plot to kill people for doing it? Political violence is just what they do. 23 individuals arrested, and I know they are not convicted yet, but arrested in this plot to use drones and other weapons to attack billionaires, the political elite, and those politicians funded by AIPAC. So in other words, anti-Semitic and anti-Israel groups, and obviously anti-Trump, TDS sufferers, all part of that plot. Absolutely horrific. And I'll tell you what, I feel so much better under this FBI than maybe any FBI that I can remember in recent years. Seriously. The FBI under Andrew McCabe, the FBI under Comey, give me a break. The FBI under Kash Patel, who was one of the favorite targets, one of the whipping boys of the left, I think is doing a phenomenal job. And I heard all of the statistics that have proven what the FBI is doing compared to the past FBIs in terms of plots disrupted, individuals arrested, and so forth. And we're talking about individuals who are doing actual crimes, not complaining at a school board meeting or praying outside of an abortion clinic. Those were the targets of the FBI under the previous administration. We're actually out there, we meaning our side and the FBI working under President Trump, are out there actually doing things to protect and preserve the people of this republic who are under threat. So that was just a phenomenal story. All right, we should have Kirsanow coming up shortly. Before we do Kirsanow, though, let us do this. Charlie, our politically incorrect mechanic. Is he in the chat today? I've been looking for him, and I hadn't noticed earlier on. Charlie is the PIM. He is the politically incorrect mechanic, and he is MAGA all the way. What does that mean? He will be, I can't really do an acronym for making your car great again. What would that be? MICA? Making your car great again? All right. He's MAGA and he's MICA. And he is a true patriot, and he is a foundational sponsor and partner of Strictly Speaking Unfiltered. If you've got automotive needs, I don't care what they are, if it's under the hood or if it's in the computer, Charlie will find it and fix it, and he will charge you what he told you he was going to charge you. No upcharges, no unnecessary parts replacements, no lies about it taking longer and more labor hours than you thought. It's truly something you don't find everywhere, and that's an honest mechanic. You can find one, you hold on to him, and you remember his phone number. Put it in your phone right now. Make it easy. Put it in your phone, write PIM if you want. That's politically incorrect mechanic, or Charlie's Auto Repair, or MYCA, make your car great again, whatever. Or that would be make your car. Oh, wait a minute. I have too many letters for my acronym. It just dawned on me. Make your car great again. It would be MICA. So it isn't going to work, is it? Anyway, you get the point, right? Save that number, 216-470-0170. 216-470-0170. Save it in your phone. So seriously, next time it's time to get the oil changed, get the tires rotated, simple maintenance, or if you have repair needs of any kind. Maybe you've got an e-check coming up and you failed last time. You take it to Charlie. He'll make sure your car is e-check compliant so that you are good to go. And remember, he's going to give you a discount, 10% off if you are MAGA, basically. That means you are a veteran, you are an active duty military, you are a first responder, or if you're just a concealed carry license holder because you believe in the Second Amendment and our rights. Get to Charlie at 216-470-0170. Charlie's Auto Repair will make your car great again. All right. It is 8:02, and that means it's time to check in with our good friend, the longest serving commissioner in the history of the commission. Which commission? The United States Commission on Civil Rights, of course. And the person we are speaking of is our friend Peter Kirsanow. And look at that. There he is. Peter Kirsanow, good morning, my friend. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, Bob. How you doing?
Right on time.
Retirement here. So
I'm sorry, say again?
psyched. I'm on the verge of retirement, at least from the practice of law. I'll still be writing books and on the Civil Rights Commission and stuff like that, but feels good. I got to tell you, it feels good. Just a few more weeks.
You keep saying that, but
I know everyone keeps saying that. I keep saying that. And I have. It's true. I've been saying that for 5 years. This time it's for real.
This time it's for realsy.
You know, but I'm at a point. I feel pretty good physically. I feel pretty decent. Although lifting weights yesterday, I really ripped up my elbow badly. You got to watch out what you're doing. You're a little older. But this is for I'm like, there's only one other guy or two other guys in the firm that are even near my age. So it's time for me to go.
Well, Pete, I'll tell you what, it'll be a sad thing for your clients, I'm sure, when you go, but I'm so glad you are going to stay in the public eye and continue to write your books and continue to work on the Civil Rights Commission, continue to be here talking to us. In fact, you'll have more time to do that now, which is better. And in fact, to do speeches as well. You're going to be in my neighborhood coming up on Friday, right?
Yeah, right. Avon Lake. And I've been there before, great crowd. So I'm looking forward to that. I think I'm going to be in...
You're going to be actually in
else.
Elyria, I think, at the 8820, right? You're going to be speaking at the 8820, which is, I think this is hosted maybe by the Avon Lake, some of the Avon Lake folks, but I think, in fact, I had my little invitation slip to it because I spoke at the Avon Lake Republican Club last week, and they gave me a little pass to your speaking event coming up. I thought it was at the 8820, but
and I'm also, I think I'm going to be in Seven Hills. I think you're going to be there too, aren't you?
We're doing that one also. Yes.
Yeah.
That one is also coming up. But anyway, yeah, in fact, I don't know that we still have I don't know if we have that one firmed up yet as far as our location yet on that one. But anyway, you're going to have more time to do those kinds of things, and that's great. Pete, I'm going to start with you on Iran, because I did not do anything about Iran in the entire first hour of the show today, because yesterday was almost exclusively about it, because the president says we have a deal. Technically, we have a memorandum of understanding. Technically, it means that Iran is not supposed to get a nuclear weapon. Technically, it means that the Strait of Hormuz is going to be opened within a few days. There's a whole lot of technicalities I'm throwing in there because none of them are locks. None of them are guarantees. They're going to have a 60-day period in which they're going to kind of negotiate the deal that they say has already been negotiated. How the whole thing is going to play out. Peter, I remain skeptical, and I heard Vice President Vance yesterday in multiple forums. I heard President Trump yesterday at the G7 telling us how things are. And the one thing that keeps me still skeptical is the fact that we are still trusting Iran, something that is proven to have been fatal over the course of the last 50 years, trusting them to keep up their end of a deal, of a bargain, if you will. Are you as worried about that aspect as I am? I'm not seeing they're guaranteed to not have a weapon anymore, a nuclear weapon. They're guaranteed. That's what it went to, if they get a nuclear weapon or continue to try to pursue one again, we're going to start bombing them all over again. We're kind of in the place we were before it started. They're promising not to, but we just have to monitor them closely to make sure they don't. That's where I am.
Yeah, well, I think I'm in the same place for a couple of reasons. Number one is, first of all, we haven't seen the terms of the deal, and
No.
I think it's foolish to judge a deal based on representations from either side, but especially from Iran. And so I want to see the text of the deal, but I don't care about the text of the deal as much as I care about the fact that we're dealing with Iran and we can't trust Iran, period. End of story. Any deal with this regime, any regime from Iran, you have to be extremely skeptical about. In fact, you'd be foolish if you trusted them. The deal, in my estimation, was when we bombed the crap out of their Army, Navy, and Air Force. They don't have a Navy anymore. They have barely an Air Force. They've got a couple of, I think it's Flying Dutchman probably. But we've pretty much decimated their ability to wage effective war against a superpower such as us. The problem with Iran is any deal that we sign with them is simply that. They are liars, they are cheaters, they are terrorists. And I don't mean this about all Iranian people. You know what I mean? It's the regime. And it seems
Sure.
to be every subsequent or successive regime.
Yeah.
I think that the president is probably going in with his eyes open. If we're any other president, I'd be very concerned. Now, the president also likes to, as you know, he will bluster and he will engage in hyperbole about how everything is so great and everything. But nonetheless, I think the fact that we almost completely destroyed the infrastructure for their ability to wage effective war is what the deal is all about. In addition to that, we have destroyed their ability to produce or begin to produce nuclear weapons. And I think we have to keep being vigilant about that. And whenever they come close, or we think they're coming close to doing so, we should hit them again. I wouldn't trust them to honor any kind of deal. Bob, I can't hear you.
That's me. That's me. That's
Okay.
on me. Yeah, I muted myself while you were talking so I could clear my throat. Okay. Peter, that's my biggest point of contention as well. You know, they're not going to develop their nuclear program anymore. Well, how many nukes can 25 billion buy? Because we're talking about them getting access to $25 billion in unfrozen funds that a lot of people are concerned about. Now, the vice president and the president have made very, very clear this is not American money. And that's good, obviously, because what Barack Obama did when they gave $1.7 billion to the Iranians, 400 million of that was in cash and Swiss francs and other denominations because they
And gold bars.
had been, what's that?
And gold bars.
And gold bars, yeah, because Iran had been cut off basically from international banking as part of the sanctions that they had faced. So it had to be given in actual cash and gold bars. And we saw that. And that was money that was delivered directly to them, not from the United States. That was from, their frozen funds and how it was, restored for them. But then the next, 1.4 billion of that was from the U.S. Treasury. It was our money. Barack Obama gave it's called the Judgment Fund, and basically it's a fund in the U.S. Treasury that is kept aside to pay off judgments if the government gets sued for whatever reason by somebody. So they give $1.3 billion of U.S. taxpayer dollars from the Treasury to the Iranians. So President Trump and Vice President Vance want everybody to know that the $25 billion, not $1.7 billion, $25 billion that is being discussed here that the Iranians will have access to is their money that was frozen, again, by international sanctions for their decades and decades of terror attacks and other assorted, crimes. So they want everybody to know, Vice President Vance and President Trump to know that it's not our money. But Peter, that doesn't make it okay with me. If we have destroyed their capability to build a nuke anytime in the near future, and if we are allowed to go in and extract the nuclear dust that was created and buried underneath the rubble from Operation Midnight Hammer, that's fine. But with $25 billion, there are nuclear powers around the globe that might not be opposed to selling them one. So I don't understand how this guarantees that Iran doesn't get a nuke, which is what the whole purpose of this war was.
No, I don't. It's not that it guarantees they won't get a nuke. First of all,
That's what
we're
the stated intent was, though. At the beginning,
I don't like the idea that we're giving them any money. But the problem is, if you're in the process of, and if your aim is to end the war, you come up with the best deal you can. Now, I don't like giving them any money whatsoever, whether it's frozen, whether it was theirs at one point, whatever it may be. Right. I just think what you have to do is destroy their ability to wage war, whether it's nuclear war or conventional war. I think that's the problem, because I haven't seen any evidence that any Iranian regime is trustworthy. I get that, and again, the president has done more than any previous administration in the last 47 years, since the 1979 debacle. And I give him credit for that. I give him credit for the fact that he has completely degraded their military. It's going to take them a long time to reconstitute that, even if they got $28 billion. Do I like it? No. And if it were up to me, maybe I wouldn't give them that $28 billion, give them access to unfrozen, but from a political perspective, from a perspective of the midterms coming up, and can you continue to engage in war with midterms? There's a lot of things going on there that there are political considerations. Oh my goodness, oh my goodness, politics is being waged by politicians. So, unless we just completely destroy their ability to ever engage in war, at some point, I think there has to be some type of deal struck. Hold your nose and strike a deal. We struck deals with all kinds of terrorist or regimes, not terrorist regimes, but any regimes. We struck deals with Germany, Soviet Union, you name it. We struck deals that sometimes are, I don't know how to characterize them, but crappy deals. And this is not a crappy deal. I think this is better.
Well, we hope it's not. We don't know because, like you said at the beginning, we haven't seen the terms of it. We haven't seen the actual text of it yet. All we're getting is the characterization of it.
Yeah, to me, it has less to do with the deal than the fact that we've degraded their military significantly, especially their Navy, their Air Force, and much of their infrastructure. We also degraded their ability to create nuclear weapons at any point. And you're right, they could maybe go out and purchase a nuclear weapon, but you know what? They could probably do that anytime. So unless we completely destroy, frankly, Iran, I'm not sure this is a bizarre regime. It's the number one sponsor of terrorism in the world. And unless we get them to change their minds, and I suspect, based on everything that's been reported, I don't know this, Roy's been told, happy talk about the fact that the people of Iran don't support this, and they're very Western and were very Western before the Ayatollah Khomeini took over back in 1979. But I think we have to keep vigilant. And it's one of those trust but verify situations where we don't trust them. Frankly, we don't even trust them. We just trust and verify and bomb the crap out of them if we think they're going out of their lane.
Yeah, well, see, again, this is exactly where we were before.
No, we're not. It's not.
Well, it is.
They're not the Navy anymore.
Pete, literally, we're basically saying the war's not over because we'll just start bombing them again if they break the deal again. They always break the deal. This is not a deal. It is not a deal.
No, it's not.
This is this is Iran saying, okay, we promise. By the way, while they're saying they promise it, they're still striking by way of Hezbollah, which is Iranian-funded proxies. They're still striking in Israel. And then President Trump is telling them, while this deal is being negotiated, hey, Israel, don't fire back. You might queer the deal. Well, wait a minute. We're firing back against Iran, which is Hezbollah, which is the one making the deal. So my point is, my fear is that it's a crappy deal. If it is a deal at all, it's a crappy deal because it relies on us trusting people, a regime that is proven to be untrustworthy. And if they break it, well, then we'll start bombing again. And then what happens? Then the strait closes up again, and then the energy prices go up again, and we're right back where we started.
No deal is going to change that. No deal is going to change that because of the nature of the regime. No deal will change that. There is no deal. The deal is we've got something on paper that quiets things down. We have really degraded their military significantly. The only way we get any kind of respite is if the majority of people in Iran are liberated, if we can take out everybody on the superstructure. But I think it's such a huge superstructure, so many people within the regime, that it's virtually impossible to do so unless you engage in full-scale warfare. So unless we as the United States are committed to engage in full-scale warfare with Iran, and I guarantee you we are not. There's no way. No, the American public is not going to go for a full-scale war against Iran. We don't want that. Okay, we don't want.
I don't want that. I don't want a boot on the ground.
So unless we're doing that, this is the best we're going to do. It is. We've completely, and it's not a deal on paper. It's what we did militarily is the best we can do. Is it perfect? Nope. Nothing's perfect. So this is the most we've done in the 47 years that this has been a significant problem for us.
So Peter, here I want you to hear what Vice President Vance had to say. We just had him up there; it was muted, but let's play one of the clips from Vice President Vance last night on Hannity. He was talking about what this deal involves. Go ahead, Dylan.
Literally picks up talking points and propaganda from the RAGC that has no support in the text of the agreement that we've actually negotiated and no basis in reality. This is good for the American people. The Iranians don't get a dime unless they behave and change their behavior.
Pause
and means that
Pause it. They don't get a dime unless they behave and change their behavior. we know they will change their behavior enough to get a dime, to get their $25 billion. And when they get it, where do we go from there? Not only could they potentially buy a nuke, Peter, you just mentioned that so much of their military has been degraded. It's pretty, a pretty good way to rebuild it with $25 billion of unfrozen assets because they behaved themselves for a few months or maybe even for a few years. That is the concern that I have in this deal. Go ahead, Dylan.
Iran will never have a nuclear weapon, Sean.
When you
That's
say
why we
they
did
don't
this.
get a dime, do they ever get an American dime, a taxpayer dollar?
No. So number one, first of all, they never get a dime of American taxpayer money, ever. Full stop. Not even close.
Okay.
What we have said is there's a lot of economic benefit in the United States relieving a lot of sanctions. Literally picks up.
I don't know why that got cut right there, but there's a lot of benefit to relieving their sanctions. I don't see what those are. That's my biggest problem with this. And I want President Trump, Vice President Vance, Secretary Rubio, and everybody else who's been involved with this to give us the terms of the deal as it's going to be written. Remember, what they're signing right now is just an MOU. It is not an official ironclad deal, but even if it was, there's nothing official or ironclad when you're talking about a nation that has broken every deal that they've ever agreed to in the past. But the point being, they're saying that money is going to go to them. They're going to unfreeze $25 billion in order for them to rebuild their country. The fact that it's not coming from our treasury this time is a good thing, obviously. But the fact that they can rebuild, restock the ballistic missiles that they have used during this war and restock everything else that has been destroyed, that, Peter, is what makes me less than confident that this deal is going to be the one that, well, will the juice have been worth the squeeze that we have experienced over the last 6 months or so?
I think it is. There's been some economic dislocation on our part. We saw gas prices and the prices of other commodities go up. But the fact that we have degraded their military to a significant degree, I think, is a major, major benefit. In addition, we don't know to what extent all of this is done. We think that somehow they can absorb the punishment that they've gotten interminably without any consequences. They still have the IRGC. There's no doubt about that, and that's a problem. And the Iranian people are suffering underneath them, and I'm not sure you're going to have a wholesale revolution because of that. But there's always that possibility. And you read certain reports with respect to what's going on inside Iran. Again, you can't trust them, but to the extent that they're negative, they're more trustworthy than any positive reports coming out of the regime. And I think that there's a greater probability now that there's some type of overthrowing of the regime. But bottom line for me is, I don't care about what the paper says. I don't care about what any purported deal is, because I don't trust the Iranians. To me, the deal was that Trump went out, destroyed their Navy, decimated their Air Force, considerably degraded their ability to wage war. But more importantly is, destroyed their nuclear capability, which could be reconstituted within a few years or so, because you still have scientists there. But unless you're willing to wipe out the entire population so that there are no other scientists that come out of there or no other technicians to come out of there or no leaders, then I don't think that the American people will stomach a full-scale war. I don't think so.
No, and they don't have to, and we don't need that. And it doesn't need to be against the Iranian people to wipe out scientists. It just needs to be the IRGC. And here's the last thing on this point, Pete, before we move on to other topics. For me, what has been the biggest net negative for us since February and the Operation Epic Fury began?
Gas prices.
Gas prices, because they closed the Strait of Hormuz.
Right.
Here's what I want somebody to answer, and I haven't heard anybody even ask it, much less get an answer for it. I'm waiting for a reporter who has access to the administration to ask this question. I'll ask it of Bernie Moreno and John Husted. I have both of them coming on this week. Tomorrow, Senator Husted, Thursday, Senator Moreno, but they're not in the administration and a part of this. But that is, if the Iranian military has been so degraded and destroyed, as we have been told that they have, how and why do they still control the strait? The contingency of all of this is, if Iran behaves, we won't have to bomb them anymore, and then they won't close off the Strait of Hormuz again. Why and how are they still in control of the strait? Why aren't we? The nation that is liberating the rest of the world from the energy grip that Iran has on them, why aren't we in control of the strait? We've got the biggest military, we've got the biggest navy, we've got all the weaponry, we've completely degraded and destroyed theirs, as you say. Yet they are still in control of the strait. So that when we leave, and if hostilities go up again, all they've got to do is choke it back off and make us pay the price again at the pump, and the world oil prices go crazy again. So what I want to know is, and I want somebody to ask President Trump, why aren't we in control of the Strait of Hormuz? Why does Iran still get that distinction of being in control of an international waterway?
I think you answered your own question, because we are approaching an election. If we waged war to control the strait, gas prices would skyrocket again. That would harm the Republican Party. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. And I think that's the major reason. My goodness, politics, political calculation is involved in this. But also, even from the standpoint, if there wasn't a political calculation, I don't know that Iran is controlling the strait. Yeah, they can create real problems, but we have had the ability to really control them. We have really degraded their military, their naval capabilities significantly. Could they at some point reconstitute that? Yeah, that's the nature of geography. But unless we're
they
willing
still have
to
enough
engage,
left to block it off right now. I mean, the strait is still mined. It is still mined from Iranian mines. I mean, they're still controlling traffic in the strait. And when this deal is signed, they will continue to control it. How and why are we allowing that? And it's not about going to a new war to control the strait. We're at war with them right now. One of the contingencies must be that for us to stop bombing them is that we get control of the strait so that the world's ships can come and go and get their oil. Why would any deal not include us controlling full control of the strait?
Because I don't think bombing is going to be enough.
I'm very, very worried about that.
No, and that's a well-placed worry. The question is, how far are you willing to go politically? How far can we go given the political circumstances? And do we want to be involved in a war? Because frankly, I think what to get to the end game, where we've got utter control of the strait, where we have, frankly, hegemony over that region, is going to require the expenditure of far more resources and lives than I think the American people are willing to do. No one really anticipated that Trump was going to go to war several months ago and wipe out much of their capability, if not all their capability, to produce nuclear weapons. That was a surprise, even to us. We weren't expecting that. And I don't think the American people, maybe I'm misreading this, but I don't think the American people, even independent of a looming midterm election, are signed on to that. Okay, I don't think so. So, there are political realities that Trump has got to deal with. He can't simply steamroll over everything. Now, this is a president who's got more cojones than any president that I've been aware of, but even there are limitations, there are political limitations.
Yeah, there are. I understand that. There are, I was talking to somebody yesterday about this. This is the one negative that we have. We are constantly having a change in leadership. Every 2 years, the Congress can change, the presidency every 4 years, and so forth. Whereas Iran's leader, IRGC, can continue forever, and they can play this game in perpetuity. They don't have to worry about what actions they're going to have, what consequences their actions are going to have on their ability to lead their country. They don't have a free country, so that's a big problem that we have. All right, Peter, I want to pivot. I want to ask you this now. When are you moving to Africa? Dylan,
yeah, well, I'm checking out some real estate in Kenya. I was looking for some beachfront property. My realtor is kind of having some struggles with that, so we'll see what happens.
Have a look at this story, Peter. Podcaster Larry Reed, don't know if you're familiar with him, but apparently he's got a pretty large following, has called for a mass exodus of Black Americans to Africa. As a collective, let's drain this place of its benefits and make our mass exodus and go home and build. That is what Larry Reed had to say. He's not the only one talking in that kind of language. There are not a lot of people, but some of them are relatively popular public figures and so on and so forth that try to move and influence. Peter, the whole reason they want to go, and he made that statement, is because Carmelo Anthony was convicted last week and sentenced to 35 years in prison, only half of which are guaranteed. He is eligible for parole in half that time. So because a black male stabbed and killed a white male inside of a track tent, an unarmed white male, by the way, and got held accountable for it by the law and by the courts and by the criminal justice system. Because of that, America is just no longer suited for black people. We got to go back to Africa and we'll build our own civilization there. Peter, you're in a pretty interesting position here to respond to that, much better than mine.
Well, first of all, this isn't the first time someone has started a Back to Africa movement. I mean, we go back more than 100 years regarding something like that. You had Marcus Garvey, you had others. You had actually Liberia, for example. You had Black Americans going to Liberia. Is there going to be some mass exodus? I highly doubt it. I will tell you, frankly, I've never heard of this guy before. Not that that's important, but I don't think that he's got such a major following. And who's going to all of a sudden pack up and say, okay, I'm going to Africa? I think you're probably talking about a few people, but again, I think this is mainly clickbait. I think that this is a guy who's trying to enlarge his audience, possibly, and I think it's just, it's not even worth considering. I've never. Not that's important. What's that?
No, nobody's going to hop a flight. You're right, and nobody's going to hop a flight or get on a boat or whatever and go and do this. But the real point here is this is his way of, again, claiming that America is a systemically racist country.
Yeah, and nobody's paying attention to that.
People can't get a fair shake here because somebody who stabbed somebody else to death and admitted doing so is being punished for that. Well, hell, we black people are just continue to be oppressed here. That's the major issue here that I would really love your response to.
Yeah. First of all, caveat, as opposed to a lot of other people who like to comment, I'm not speaking for all black people. I'm speaking for Pete Kirsanow and a lot of other people that I know, okay, where we've discussed this kind of stuff. So these, I don't want to call him a clown. I don't know the guy, but you have a lot of folks out there, and I've seen them on television, all upset about the Carmelo Anthony decision. And I'm still confused, by the way, Bob. I don't know if you're like me, but I keep thinking of the basketball player, okay? Every time I hear Carmelo Anthony, did he do that?
They probably named him after that with a K instead of a C, but they probably named him after the basketball player.
Yeah, I have little doubt about that. But I don't think that there's any kind of a mass movement here. I think you will get these guys, and you see them very often. Again, you don't have to be on the Civil Rights Commission to see this, but very often I do see them at the Civil Rights Commission. And you've got guys who want more clicks, and you've got guys who want more notoriety, and they just want to make a splash. Again, I've never heard of this guy before, not that that's important, but I don't think there's any kind of a mass movement to do something like this. And I also think that what you see is a function of squeaky wheel getting the grease. We have seen, and the press loves this, the media loves this, they will go out and seek out folks who are all upset about Carmelo Anthony getting a long sentence for killing somebody. So you always get these guys, and you see them all the time. It's not just, black Americans. It's almost 90%, 95% on the left who engage in theater, performative arts, in order to either get clicks or make a point or just vent. But responsible people aren't doing anything like that. But again, I think there's an outside influence or outsized influence by folks like this who say things that sometimes most people, I think, would consider to be outrageous, because the outrageous gets clicks.
Well, you're right about that, Peter. They do it for clicks, they do it for outrage, they do it to expand their audience. I mean, everybody in this field and what I'm doing right now, they're trying to expand their audience. This is what I'm trying to do as well. To let people know you're here when they don't know you're here. And a good way to do it. I won't do that, though. I'm not going to say something outlandish and outrageous just for people to say, oh my gosh, this, radical wild guy said this, and now suddenly people are paying attention. Right. I won't do that, but some will. But as you know, there are members of Congress that have backed some of the stuff, not about moving to Africa, but about this Carmelo Anthony thing being unjust, because they continue to repeat that it was an all-white jury. Peter, because there are no blacks on it, doesn't make it all white. There were 3 Hispanics, I think 2 Asians, 3 Asians, 2 Hispanics, and somebody from the Middle East, a Middle Eastern descent. So it was actually a very diverse jury. But the message from Jasmine Crockett, the message from Hakeem Jeffries, the message from so many others who are people who are not just clickbaiters, but who are public officials and sometimes elected officials. They're the ones saying that this is a travesty of the justice system, that this individual, Carmelo Anthony, did not get a fair trial because of the jury makeup and so forth. And so they're literally suggesting that, once again, that this is another example of, in their mind, Michael Brown, Trayvon Martin, George Floyd, Freddie Gray, and the list of people that you talk about all the time, that this guy has been victimized by a racist system, and that's why they're pushing back.
Yeah, well, we know who those politicians are. We've seen them before. The Jasmine Crockett's of the world, the Elon Omars of the world, the Priya Pauls, and all of those folks. And who's Rashida Tlaib, who's got a thicker beard than I do. But the fact of the matter is that all these folks are they're looking from the political sense, they're looking for clicks, and they don't care that they will burn down a society or keep people ginned up because of that. And I think most of your audience, unfortunately not everybody, but most of your audience definitely, and I think most Americans, the vast majority of Americans, don't give them any kind of credit or attention at all. The problem is that this is a vast country of over 325 million people. So even if you get 1%, you're going to get millions of people get ginned up. And that's the irresponsible nature of this. We need more people out there. I think, again, 95 to 99% of people don't pay any attention to the Jasmine Crockett's or the Elon Omars of the world. But nonetheless, that's still a pernicious influence. And I think we need people like you, Bob, to some extent, whenever I have the ability to do so on the Civil Rights Commission, I definitely do it all the time, push back on this thing and speak in very measured tones, the truth that everyone understands, to basically reinforce what 99.9% of the people already believe, but just need to know that they're not alone.
Yeah, I think that's well said, Peter. Peter, I want to stay somewhat in the same lane here, because we're talking about race, but not quite to the level of that particular story. But I think a lot of us were led to believe that DEI was killed when President Trump came back in, because by executive order, he outlawed, a lot of the hiring practices and student admission standards and so on and so forth. So they may not be able to practice DEI anymore, and that's a good thing. But apparently they can still push it and make you learn about it. Because here's the story. Look at this. 2/3, according to a new report from Campus Reform, found that 67% of colleges and universities across America require DEI courses for a student to graduate. So it's not the practice of DEI, although that still goes on. And we've seen a lot of exposés on that since President Trump took office. There are some who are just completely defying the new law and the order. But this report, originally conducted by Speech First, took a look at general education requirements at 248 colleges, found that 165 of them require students to take a DEI course to graduate. 33% of so-called institutions of higher learning did not offer DEI courses, according to the surveys. This violates federal executive orders, like we were talking about, that sought to expunge DEI and wokeness from schools. Sadly, quote, the report found that students are subjected to courses advocating far-left ideological perspectives and pushing far-left political advocacy. 59% of the surveyed universities have DEI course requirements that are public. 59% of those that require DEI are public universities. 41% of them are private universities. This is pure leftist indoctrination that has not gone away, despite the public having rejected woke and DEI ideology at the polls by electing President Trump. Pete, what do you make of the fact that they're forcing kids to take DEI courses to graduate at 2/3 of our colleges?
What I make of it is, again, I'm not surprised. I doubt that you're surprised, and I bet you a significant portion of your listenership is not surprised that this is happening, because as we know, our kids having been to college, and I went to college back in the Mesozoic era, when this first started happening. The 90% of college faculty administration is left, and not just left, but hard left. A bunch of my football teammates and I have been vigilant in terms of my alma mater, Cornell, and trying to tamp down the leftism as much as possible. But, we're fighting a real tough battle on that front because the feeder systems for these schools, whether it be high schools, colleges, the teachers' colleges, everything reinforces the leftist ideology with which, among which, DEI is a significant portion. So this is something that we're going to have to fight. And it is being fought by the Trump administration, among others. The Trump administration's Office of Civil Rights is engaged in a real effort to make sure that the colleges, universities are not engaged in this type of ideological indoctrination. Now, much of it is lawful and there's not much you can do, but one of the things you can do is you don't necessarily have to demarcate things on the basis of whether it's lawful or unlawful. You can say, okay, here's $50 million on the table here that you were getting that you're no longer going to get because you're engaged in this type of activity. It has nothing to do with enforcing any kind of civil rights legislation or civil rights statutes. It has to do with public funding, and that's what gets their attention. And I know that, I am aware, based on my contacts with the Office of Civil Rights, and at least one of our special assistants on the Civil Rights Commission is now prominent there. And I dealt with the Office of Civil Rights, of course, in both DOJ and Department of Education on a long, ongoing basis. But you've got these ideologues who are under the political appointee strata. They are going to be responsive to the political appointees, but you've got to be constantly on top of this to make sure that there are no shenanigans going on. And the big thing is, do not fund this. If you get a whiff that this type of activity is going on, by you I mean the head of the Office of Civil Rights or others within the administration, you pool those funds immediately. And again, there are legal avenues. If students are being subjected to these DEI courses, this indoctrination, they've got the ability, for example, to file complaints with the Office of Civil Rights of the Department of Justice and of the Department of Education. Do those things. We don't have enough conservatives who take advantage of those mechanisms. We have ceded that to the left to our detriment. But to the extent we do something like that, we will be successful.
Peter, yeah, and I completely agree with everything that you just said. I'm just infuriated. In fact, I'll take it. I did at the top of the show this morning. I had a story on the San Francisco Giants baseball caps. I don't know if you saw this. I'm infuriated by the fact that no matter how much is done to try to stop the DEI, to stop the wokeness, to stop the division, they continue to do things. So as you know, we're in the month of, and it's Pride Month in the month of, and all of these baseball teams are, everybody except the Texas Rangers are having their Pride Night. Okay, you saw probably that that usually involves some sort of an alteration to the uniform. They've got rainbows on something or another on all of these teams' Pride Nights, and they're flying their flags and all of this crap inside the baseball stadiums. Well, a handful of players each year, it seems like. There you go. You can see right there, make their own personal statement by writing Bible quotes on their caps or somewhere else on their uniforms, kind of saying, I'm not all about this. I have to wear this because this is what they're making us do, but my faith tells me something different. And baseball comes down on them and warns them that that's a violation of the baseball's uniform code, these kinds of things. My point here being, it seems like they're continuing to push on all things that are traditional, normal, nuclear family based, and so on and so forth. They push back on all of those things and will continue to push radicalism no matter what the law says, no matter what executive order is passed or is signed, what law is passed. DEI is banned, but we're still going to make people take DEI, if not practice DEI. We're going to allow baseball teams to do something that is very much abnormal, and that is to promote this, pride stuff, but we're not going to allow the players to do something that is abnormal in the Pride Night thing by putting Bible quotes on it. So do you understand my point? I'm just at a very,
Sure.
I'm in a place where I'm frustrated by the majority continues to be silenced by the minority. And I don't mean that in race. I mean in numbers of people who believe in, these things. The minority continues to rule.
Yeah, the squeaky wheel gets the oil or the grease. That's typical. Um, and I am frustrated by it also, and I don't want to diminish this, wokeness, but I think wokeness actually peaked quite some time ago. And I think that if you look at the fact that I think a lot of these teens have succumbed to wokeness. One of my biggest pet peeves is the change of the name and the logo of the Cleveland Indians.
Yeah.
But we could talk about that forever and ever, amen. But the fact of the matter is, I do think, and again, this is simply, I've not taken any polls on this, or I'm not aware of polls on this necessarily, although I've seen something that's kind of adjacent to this. But I think my own sense of this, again, and I've got a pretty good sense of this based on what I see happening at the Civil Rights Commission reports, I see the data that I see. I think that the wokeness, I think it peaked a while ago. How long ago, I don't know, but a few years ago. Maybe at the advent of the Biden administration. I actually think that people got sick of it right at the end of the Obama administration when this stuff was being shoved down our throats and everyone got sick of it. But I do think that it's going to start going in a different direction. I think that people will feel more confident expressing themselves. I do think that when the masses of people show that they're not on board with having this ideology being shoved down our throats against our will, when you've got these bizarre spectacles at various events, especially sporting events where little kids are present and they're being subjected to this, frankly, travesty. I don't care if it's what it is, but decent people don't subject their kids to this, and they want to go out to a ball game and not be, and have an enjoyable time with hot dogs and baseball. But we get this constantly because we have got weak, jellyfish-spined leadership at almost every strata of society. But again, and I say they're weak, but they're, capitulating to what they perceive to be market conditions and the pressures that are being exerted upon them. If the masses of people say no mas, I think the masses of people are starting to say no mas and have been saying that for a while. I think those
they said no mas in November of 2024. That was from the article. That was the biggest thing. They said no mas, and President Trump, please, make it go away. And he's doing his little best to, but they persist. So
now this has been progressing now since at least in my, again, there's no hard and fast, but I saw this in the late 70s. This is when it first began. There were some court decisions related to, matters such as this, but this has been going on now for nearly 50 years. It's going to take a while to reverse course, and I think we're around that. I think a lot of people, we're at a saturation point where people are saying, you know what, a lot of this stuff we're not on board with. I feel more comfortable saying that we're not on board about it because I see other people out there, like those guys. That's a small little statement, it appears to be, when they put that on their caps. But I think that's a revolutionary statement. It gives permission. It's a permission structure that says to others, it's okay to say no to this. And not in a way that's, adversarial or mean or anything, but in a way that says, again, no mas. You had your chance. Didn't convince me that this is a good thing to do.
Yeah, they didn't put a slur on their cap. They just said, here's what I believe in. Here's a Bible verse. That's it. Do what you want with it. That's all. All right. I'm going to stay in the same lane again, Pete, for one more story. Because this is a pretty big one too. Disparate impact. Brief definition of it before I ask you about it and tell you about the story here, because this is pretty big too. But disparate impact is something that President Trump has also promised to tackle, and apparently now through the DOJ has done exactly that. Disparate impact is basically what happens when one particular group of individuals is not succeeding at the level of another group of individuals, despite all of the conditions being the same for them, despite no matter what it is, whatever the requirement is, it's complete equality and equality of opportunity. And just to maybe this will kind of help those who don't like to see everything as being about black and white. Okay, let's take race out of it for a second and say, let's suppose that a university sets a standard that you have to pass a particular class or whatever at, a math class or whatever at 90% to graduate. And everybody has to do that. No matter who you are, everybody has to do that. But they notice that people with red hair are routinely getting under 90%, so they're not graduating. So those redhead students are not being represented at their level of the population among the graduates. Their success rate is not the same. So therefore, what do? Do they tell the redheaded students to study a little harder, give them a little bit more training, a little bit more tutoring, or whatever the case might be to help them get up to snuff? No, they say we have to lower the requirement because of the disparate impact on those redheaded kids. So we're going to lower the 90 to whatever the redhead kids are getting so that now everybody over 70 gets to graduate or gets to move on. It's a very rudimentary example, Peter, of what's going on with disparate impact. And it's not about redheaded kids. It's typically about the black and white issue. Well, President Trump, and I don't know if you can throw this up on the screen, Dylan, if you have that one up there or not, but another nail was hammered into the coffin of DEI as an opinion from the Justice Department deemed a special kind of hiring practice to be unconstitutional. On Tuesday last week, the DOJ's Office of Legal Counsel took measures to restore, quote, our colorblind constitution, end quote, by working with the EEOC to consider disparate impact liability guidelines as unconstitutional. Peter, your thoughts?
Well, we could talk about this for hours and hours because this has been a significant topic, especially in the civil rights community. My former colleague, Gail Harriet, has written extensively on this and whether or not it's constitutional. And it starts with, and I don't want to bore your audience, but so they understand, the concept of disparate impact began about 50 years ago, and the seminal case was Griggs versus Duke Power. I didn't think we were going to be talking, I didn't know we were going to be talking about this necessarily, and I don't want to give a tutorial on the law on this. But the idea back then was in the Deep South and in other places, there were certain employers that were getting around overt discrimination or liability for overt discrimination by establishing certain employment requirements that would winnow out Blacks, Hispanics, and others. And these were requirements that had no bearing. They were not job related. They were like, among other things, you must have, who knows what? You must have some type of degree that had absolutely no regard or no bearing on whether or not you were able to perform the job, or some other job qualification that didn't test whether or not you were able to perform the job. So this was a subterfuge, an underhanded way of actually discriminating on the basis of race. Now what's happened, not from the standpoint of a legal perspective, but just generally, as disparate impact has morphed into almost anything, and everything has a disparate impact. Everything has a disparate impact without there being an intent to discriminate. There doesn't have to be an intent to discriminate or even a subtle attempt to discriminate. Everything in the world has a disparate impact. For example, the NBA has a disparate impact on people who are under the height of 6'5". All right, there's all kinds of things that have a disparate impact that have absolutely nothing to do with overt or intentional discrimination. So the idea now is that because disparate impact has been so distorted and really has, frankly, the pendulum has gone all the way from what it was in South Carolina in 1978, in Griggs versus Duke Power, to where we are right now, that getting rid of disparate impact liability or disparate impact theory is probably a salutary thing with certain, it should still be the ability to prove that someone was trying to engage in intentional discrimination in violation of the law, because intentional discrimination is first of all, it's unlawful. And second of all, it's not where we are and who we are as Americans. I'm starting to sound like Democrats saying that's not who we are. I wish I could come up with other language, but it's wholly un-American. That's not what we do. So I think, knowing some of the folks that were engaged in this endeavor, they're doing it the right way. They are as relentless on this as I have been and some others have been. It's going to take a long time because it's so entrenched in every major institution imaginable, especially in the college level, but everywhere. Everything is subtly shaped because of disparate impact. But that is one of the most discriminatory systems that we have developed in this society, and the left uses it like a cudgel. They bludgeon us with this disparate impact. Helps no one. I'm hopeful Harmeet, Dillon, and others, and I don't know Harmeet. I've talked to her a few times, but I get a sense of Harmeet, and I've referred clients to her when she was in private practice. I get a sense that there's no doubt she knows what she's doing. Don't get me wrong. She's very tough, very smart. She knows this area of law as well as anybody. And I'm hopeful that we only have, a couple more years to get this through. Another Democratic administration comes in. They're going to try to reinstate it again to please certain political constituencies. But I think that dog won't hunt anymore. Most people don't like this. They want to be judged, again, based on the content of their character, not the color of their skin or any adjunct to the color of their skin.
Yeah, and the really aggravating thing about it, Pete, is we are truly pursuing, or at least we were supposed to be truly pursuing equality, and they have sacrificed equality in the name of equity, and they have sacrificed fairness in the name of disparate impact and so forth. And when scores or SAT scores or whatever it is the metric is just isn't allowing enough people to advance that they believe should be advanced, they're going to kill it. And the DOJ has now said no more of that. As Pete Hegseth would say, enough. We're through. We're done with that shit, I think is what Pete said. The DOJ has restored equal treatment for all, which used to be the goal of the civil rights movement and for civil rights advocates. Equal treatment for all. And now they're saying that's not good enough. Equal treatment doesn't serve the purposes of our agenda. It's not about equal treatment for everybody. It is about favorable treatment for some over others in order to get the impact that we want. And it's a very, very frustrating thing to see.
Yeah. Again, this has been going on for decades now.
Yeah.
It probably, in terms of its implementation, peaked during the Obama administration, where everything was being viewed through that lens. I think it's poisonous to society. I don't think it judges individuals, again, by the content of their character versus the color of their skin. And so I'm very happy. There's a lot to complain about in any political superstructure or any political party or any particular candidate. But one of the things that pleases me about Donald Trump is he's taken on so many of the tough fights, so many of the third rail issues that no other Republican, and frankly, we don't have to mention the Democrats, no other Republican would dare touch. Is it perfect? No. But for somebody who's been laboring...
They're cowards. They're cowards, and Trump has brass ones. Trump has the guts.
Exactly right. And I'm so happy to see this. As somebody who's been laboring in these vineyards for decades, to see this is extraordinary. I can't begin to tell you, because there's so much beneath the executive branch. There's so much in the, within the various agencies of these guidelines, these regs, that, I mean, you could take all of, and I did this once in law school class. I brought in all the CFRs, the Code of Federal Regulations, that relate to this, that actually encourage or by default promote discrimination. And the tiny little print in these CFRs, Code of Federal Regulations, I had it stacked up so it'd be waist high. That's how much is just devoted to this kind of stuff. Donald Trump comes in and says no mas. So regardless of, and we're always going to complain about certain aspects of what Trump does or anybody does. But for anyone who has complaints about Donald Trump, overall, I got to, at least from my perspective on this issue, no one has come remotely close. You can take the cumulative effort of every other Republican president and conservative senator and congressman out there, doesn't even come close to a little bit, close to what Donald Trump has done in this regard.
Completely agree. Peter, I'm going to close with a pretty big one, but just to get your opinion on it for 3-4 minutes here, if you have that much. Did you see the report, or did you hear the report that I was just talking about before you came on this morning about the FBI disrupting the plot at the UFC event at the White House?
No, I didn't. I mean, yeah, I did see the tail end of that, but I'm not familiar with the report.
Right before you came on, I was telling the story. The FBI disrupted a plot. They have announced a number of arrests. They've identified or people that they are targeting for arrest, 23 people individual as part of a network of plotters. The plan was to use explosive-laden drones to fly them into buildings near the White House on Sunday night during that UFC event that would force a mass evacuation of thousands and steer those crowds out toward a pre-staged sniper team. it would have been just an absolute annihilation. A second wave was then allegedly planned to storm the White House gate in the midst of all of the chaos. The FBI first learned of the threat only days ago on June 10th and began working with partners to secure a probable cause for an arrest in Cincinnati, where one suspect was taken into custody. But like I said, they have identified at least 23 signal users once they were able to uncover a signal chat that were discussing pre-operational activity to blow things up in the vicinity around the White House, forcing a mass evacuation into what would have been then massive sniper fire. Pete, it's a pretty extraordinary thing. Kash Patel spoke on this just this morning and said, thanks to the rapid action of the FBI and our partners, multiple individuals are now in custody and allegedly planned attacks were stopped cold. More obviously to come. Pete, that movement the Democrat Party is a part of is just so unbelievably addicted to political violence.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to say about it. Do you?
Yeah, well, no, I agree with you. 3 assassination attempts on this president. 3 assassination attempts on this president. They advocate violence. We've seen what's happening with these various ICE attacks on ICE agents and others. All of the, this organized opposition, funded opposition to things that ICE does. It's truly extraordinary, and I think that one of my pet peeves, and I know it's yours, is that major media, if the roles were reversed, if the right was doing something like this, all we'd hear from the media 24/7 is about this kind of activity. This is truly astonishing and extraordinary, and it can't be overplayed. It really can't. The media, however, just kind of glides past this. We're at a point now where I think I'm happy that the FBI is involved, that they're able to thwart this. I think there should be, well publicized arrests and punishments for these individuals. And this needs to be tamped down. And unfortunately, this is going to be going on for quite some time, at least during the Trump administration or the advent of any other conservative administration. And frankly, it doesn't even require a president who is conservative. I think that they're going to continue to do this. And there's got to be very, very stringent enforcement mechanisms in place. They've got to go after these people because this can spiral. If history shows anything, this kind of thing can spiral out of control very, very quickly. And there's incredible amount of money behind this, incredible amount of organization. And again, we ask the question rhetorically, and doesn't even need to be asked. Where is the media on this? How come they're not sticking microphones in the face of Hakeem Jeffries, Chuck Schumer, and others, which they would do if this was on the right? They'd stick it to the conservative public officials and say, explain this, denounce this. What's going on here? But they don't do that with Hakeem Jeffries and others.
Nope.
In fact, they will. Has anyone asked Bernie Sanders how the heck he can promote Plattner, guy with a Nazi tattoo? Stunning stuff. The kind of hypocrisy is, we know this and we're used to it as conservatives, but nonetheless, for that percentage of people who want to be left alone, but nonetheless vote, I think it needs to be instructive. We have to show not just the hypocrisy, but the danger involved here. And I think that a lesson needs to be imparted by the FBI, and I don't care if they're going to get the program, which they will. They're constantly going to get it. And people are going to go, oh my, they're targeting these individuals. Yeah, the right has been targeted for my entire lifetime. The President of the United States has been targeted with assassination 3 times. Target these bozos and send them to jail because they're violating the law, and suppress this kind of unlawful and dangerous activity on their part. Personally, I'm not advocating violence. Okay, I'm not advocating violence at all. But if somebody were in my face doing something even remotely like that, or advocating even remotely like that, it would not be a pleasant circumstance. I'll put it that way. Even at the age of 72, and I can't bench press 400 pounds anymore, but you know what? I'm still a mean old cuss. I wouldn't put up with this kind of crap.
People are going to find out how mean of a cuss you are on Friday night, this Friday, June 19th, otherwise known as Juneteenth. Peter Kirsanow in North Ridgeville. This is the one I was talking about, Pete. You're going to be at the 8820, presented by Zuber's Lincoln Project. Celebrate the 16th President, Abraham Lincoln, and his Emancipation Proclamation. Friday, June 19th, 6 to 8 p.m. at the 8820 on Bender Road in North Ridgeville. Keynote speaker Peter Kirsanow and a warm-up speaker Brandon Rossi from Turning Point Action. So Pete, I'm so happy that you're going to be in my neighborhood. This is literally, I could probably take a quick bike ride over there to see you on Friday. I know you're going to have a great time and a great turnout, but for those who don't know, you can purchase tickets to see Pete. It's a $10 per person donation, and it looks like you can get this through the Lorain County Young Republicans. And I think that's it. So Friday night, Juneteenth.
Yeah, I've got a couple of, that's in North Ridgeville, correct?
Yep.
I can't remember, I don't have my schedule in front of me, but I'm also doing one in Avon Lake, and I think you and I are going to be in Seven Hills, correct?
We're going to be in Seven Hills. Yeah, we just don't have the date on that one yet, or the location. They changed the date due to some various circumstances, but yeah, we'll be together in Seven Hills coming up soon. So there's a lot of great places to come and listen to Peter Kirsanow opine on the most important issues of our time. Peter, I always appreciate you, my friend. Great job as always. Thank you, sir. And we'll talk to you again
Thanks,
soon.
Bob. Take
All
care.
right.
Bye-bye.
You got it, buddy. All right, there you go. The music is a playing. If you cannot hear it, thank you to Pete for his time. A lot of really important stuff to digest there. Thanks to the chatters. Dylan alerted me in the middle of this show that there was a troll inside saying some pretty graphic and trolly type things. And so I was able to block him out at some point or another so that it doesn't ruin the experience for everybody else. Hopefully the chatters, anytime you see that, chatters too, I know Dylan is trying to keep an eye on it too, but anytime you see that, send me a text. I'm trying to monitor my phone while I'm also monitoring the live feed and the show. But anytime you see that kind of garbage, just let me know. All right. I'm just looking at the chat real quick because you guys are so active and so very informative. I always appreciate you guys very much. Thank you, everybody. I'll try to respond to that. Now that I can save that chat, that's just a new feature. I can actually save the chat or after. It's a new feature of StreamYard that I use, but that's neither here nor there. But I can fill in and answer any questions that may have arisen during the show that I couldn't talk about while live. So thank you to Dylan for running it behind the scenes. Thank you to Peter Kirsanow. Thanks to the chatters. Thanks to you if you're watching for the first time. I hope you'll come back. Tell your friends. Again, we're trying to grow this thing like everybody else in this space. The best way to do that is to let people who don't know we're here, that we are here. So share. If you like what you see, if you're a regular, if you're one of my Unfiltered insiders, or if you're brand new watching this on a replay somewhere, if you like what you see, share it with other people. Share the channel, strictly speaking, Unfiltered with Bob France, so that we can indeed grow this and have an even bigger impact on protecting, preserving, and saving our republic, because that's why we're here. Don't forget also, well, as long as I'm on the subject, to subscribe to the newsletter, the Sunday morning briefing called Strictly Speaking This Week. It comes every Sunday morning. I'll give you 5 things you need to know for the week ahead, 5 things to do in the week ahead, as well as exclusive commentary and video. You'll see right there each and every Sunday morning at 6 a.m. It'll be waiting for you in your inbox to read at your leisure. Subscribe by scanning that QR code that you see right there. I'll leave it on as I close out and say thank you one more time. Be well, be safe, and stay free. Bye-bye, everybody.